Woman, empower thyself and listen to The W.E.T Show. I'm your host, Hattyc. It's a podcast for women, a podcast for men supporting women. Listen as we engage women from all walks of life, share about her business, her experiences, her relationship, her story with you on The W.E.T Show. Join us in all our social media platforms as we send out live Vox Pops interviews for the segment Streetwise Woman in a community near you. So join the conversation and be the embodiment of empowerment. From survival to self-worth, awakening the woman within. Woman, empower thyself. And welcome to The W.E.T Show. I'm your host, Hattyc. Today's episode is for the woman who has ever felt unseen, the woman who kept going while silently carrying pain, the woman who forgot who she was beneath all those roles, titles, and expectations. Today, we're joined by leadership coach, author, speaker, and transformational voice, Dr. Thashana Thomas, who has written a powerful book, Awakening the Power of You, Reclaiming Your Voice and Self-Worth. Dr. Thomas, welcome to The W.E.T Show.
Thank you, Ms. Hattie. Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
It's my pleasure having you here. So, Dr. Thomas, before the author, the coach, and the PhD, who was Thashana Thomas?
Well, that's a loaded question. Before Dr. Thashana Thomas, there was just Thashana Burton, a young woman who was trying to stand on her own, who was trying to identify who she was in this world, a woman who was trying to identify her purpose, and of course, live the dream that her mom had for her. A woman who was choosing discipline when doubt was louder than direction. A woman who shy, introverted, who wanted to sit in the background, do what is required, and then someone else take the spotlight. So that is who Thashana Burton was before she transitioned into the woman she is today.
Okay, Thashana, well said. Now, I just want to delve a little bit, not into your business, but to get out the nitty-gritties that we are as women sometimes, we have, and really these little nitty-gritties are for others to learn from us. So
Yes.
I want to ask you, what was Thashana Burton carrying emotionally at that time?
It's a lot. And it would take several podcast recordings to be able to unpack all of that because it has been a lot. A lot of persons may not know because I seem accomplished. I seem to have it all together. But I'm coming from a single parent home with my mom only, who herself had me as a teenager. So while she had to quickly become a woman because she had to carry and take care of another life by herself. And for the entire Caribbean knows that being born in the 80s to a single mom in a Christian home, it is not anything to write home about. The public disgrace, the public shaming, the things that are said about you by family. And I was, not that my mom raised me in that environment like that, but you would hear it because it existed. So I carried all of that burden. I still do. I just carry it differently now than I carried it then. Because now I carry it with more understanding. Now I carry it, as the book says, awaken the power of you. So all of those things that were said, that were done, those things did not go to waste. That is what fuels the woman that I am. So I carried for years the emotional burden of not having a father being present in my life and seeing others around me having both my mom and dad. And then sometimes you wonder, what would my life have been like if my dad was there with my mom? Would I have been raised differently? Would have I accomplished more earlier? Would I have maybe chosen different partners in my life? So it was just a lot of all of that that I was carrying that led me to begin to journal.
Mhm.
Because being raised in that environment, in that time, you were not allowed to speak. You only speak when you're spoken to, and you have to be very careful what you say. So my journal, my pen, my paper became my best friend. So I struggled with a lot of those things up until maybe my late 20s, early 30s. Not that I am perfect now. I'm just walking differently in that purpose.
Brilliantly said. Um, what belief about yourself were you fighting then? Did you have any beliefs, like I am not enough? Or
Yes.
rest?
Oh, that was
That was
maybe
one.
one of the
That was a lucky
one of
guess.
the things I struggled with, yes, because you are made to feel and think that if your father is not present and the fact that you're born to a teenage mom who herself was still growing up, you are not enough because you are not being given enough. You are not coming from the right background in terms of mommy, daddy being missing, regardless of the fact that I'm coming from a family that has done it well for themselves, everyone. But that does not take away from the stigma that is associated with a single parent teenage mom. So I am not enough. I cannot do this. I do not belong here. All of those things I struggled with for years, even though I was still pushing through and trying to accomplish things. All of that at one point was to try to prove those persons wrong until I realized I do not need to do that. I need to live life on my terms.
Okay. So about your dad, no. I know we've had a little bit of discussion about that. Could you tell us a little bit about the background of your father, basically? Can you?
Okay. So my mom and my dad, he was older, and she, based on what I know, because even though we don't have a daddy-daughter relationship, there is more respect for what the Bible says. Honor your mom and your dad, so your days may be long on the earth, and all of those nice things. So my dad is Jamaican, as everybody would probably figure that out by now based on my accent. Um, at the time, my mommy was they when they were together, they got separated when she was 5 months pregnant or something like that, because apparently there were other people in the marriage or in the relationship rather. After I passed for to go to high school, at the time we did common entrance, my mom was trying to reach out to persons who knew him to tell him that I'm going to high school. Apparently, by that time, he would have migrated to Canada. No, we did not know that. However, but I think we should have figured out because just a year or maybe a year and a half prior to that, he would have come to my mom to get me so I could meet my other siblings. Because I do have siblings by his side. I have two sisters, two brothers. That was then. Apparently, there are other children now. And when she was trying to find out where he was, just to tell him that I'm going to high school, he was already in Canada. One of acquaintance between both of them would have reached out to him to let him know because she would have asked. He wrote a letter and sent to her to tell her that she's to stop searching for him and send her child to school. Unfortunately, I would have come across that letter because at the time it came to the post office. I would have come across that letter, and as old as I am, I still cannot get those words out of my head. And I think that is when I began to really write how I felt because I was so torn, I was so broken. And after a few years, I would have gone through high school. He did not help, he didn't contribute in any way. That was my mom only. After a few years, we would have reconnected. He reached out, we started talking, but it never amounted to anything where I would walk into a room and say, "Oh, yeah, there's my dad." It's never that. So that is basically the background. I have tried on many occasions to mend the relationship, but it's very difficult because he carries grudges, for want of a better word or phrase. And the simplest things gets into an argument. And I am at a space in my life where if you are not contributing to my growth and development and my mental health, you are not welcome. There's no space for you in my life at the moment. So that's basically where it's at. He's back in Jamaica now. We talk, yes, but not intentionally. It is just to say, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? And that's about it. So you won't find me get up on a regular morning and so wanted to call my dad. I was spoken to him in a couple of days. It's not that. It's out of trying to ensure that I adhere to what the Bible says. Because being a Christian, you need to uphold the scripture, and that's it.
So, as a young girl growing up with, that background and that scenario with an absentee dad
Mm-hmm.
and having known the circumstances of birth, um, how did you process all of this? How did that impact what you later became, the Thashana that you are now?
All right. I detail some of that in the book, and a lot of that is attributed to my mom because her strength was undeniable. It was seen, it was felt, it was heard. It was how she protected me, it was how she protected my space. It was how she protected my sanity. It was in how she provided for me. I was never wanting for anything. I cannot ever say that I would need something and I would not get it. Or in some persons would say, oh, you go to bed hungry. I don't know what that is. If that were to happen, that was because I wanted to, not because I had to. How did that shape me as a person? I pulled on that strength. And there has been times, even in my recent life, where I feel like things are just not going my way, where relationships would have gone sour. And I would think back to those days when I would see her push to ensure that I am going to school and not just going to school for going sake, but I have what was required. Some people wouldn't even know this. Throughout my 5 years in high school, I don't remember taking public transportation because I had to, because she would pay a dedicated taxi to pick me up in the mornings to take me to school and take me back home. Yes, you would have had days where I would take public transportation, but that was not because I had to. That was because I would say, Mommy, I want to take the bus today because I want to be with my friends or something like that. But she made sure that I would go to school in comfort. I got new uniforms every school term, new bags, new shoes, all the whole works. I was never wanting for books or anything like that. And how has that shaped me is to say that your circumstances in which you are born does not dictate what your future is going to give to you, because it all comes down to the work that you put in and how you pull on what it is that you have gone through. Because sometimes what we don't realize is the things that God allows us to go through is what is actually building us for the life that we are supposed to walk into in the future. And that is precisely how I see mine. Yes, my father was absent. He still is absent. He's not there now. Because I can't call him now if something is wrong and say I need help, and he's going to do that. I know that for a fact. So I wouldn't even go down that road. But the reality here is him not being there has caused me to develop a better sense of self-reliance for me and not reliance on a man in my life for me to be able to achieve. And I'm not saying that women who were raised with their dads are not able to do that. I'm just saying that for me, I know how not to rely on anyone else for anything for me, because I grew up learning how to build what I need for myself. Did I struggle with that sometimes? Yes, I did. Do I struggle with it now sometimes? Yes, I still do, because I am still a woman becoming. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I'm there yet, but I'm far better than I was 5, 10 years ago.
Beautifully said. Um, I got that one of the themes in the book was
Mhm.
about stripping away labels,
Right.
right?
It is.
Let's sit there for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Who is a woman when she is no longer a mother, a wife? Let's just strip away those labels. Who is that woman?
All right. A woman who has been stripped of all her labels, and this is a question I ask to persons when we have just casual conversation sometimes, and I say, who are you if you don't have the job title of director? Who are you if you don't have the PhD or the EDD behind your name? Who are you if no one says mom? Who are you if no one calls you a friend? And believe it or not, we struggle to answer because we don't know. Because society, as we have been cultured and nurtured to think that we need those labels to remain relevant, to be important, and to matter. And I'm not saying that those labels are not important because those are what cause us to feel and find meaning. But if you can identify within yourself who you are as a person without all of that, that's not just awakening. You are beginning to become the woman that or the person that God has created you to be. Because now you are identifying your true purpose. Now you are able to identify why I am on this earth. What am I here to do? And this is why a lot of us who are in some jobs and in some relationships that are not serving us because we're of the opinion that we need that label and we need that man or that woman to make us feel as if we are enough. So if we begin to look at our lives in a way that this is not there, what am I? It causes us to now begin to think deeper than what society molds us to be. But that's an uncomfortable place to be. And not everyone is strong enough to go through that. Because when I did it, that broke me for months. And when I say that broke me for months, I would go to work, do what I need to, and I would come home. I was not going to church. I was not socializing outside of my regular professional setting. And all I did was be home with my kids because I was trying to find me. And none of those things that were external to me was helping me to find me. It was forcing me rather to perform, to do what is required in that space, to go to church and be the good Christian and say amen and get in spirit when and all of that. And when you go in social setting, it was forcing you to be happy even when you're not. So I had to take myself away from all of that, be selfish for myself to be able to find who is Thashana without all of this label, all of what society prescribes. And as I said, it is not an easy journey. It's a journey that is going to drain you, it is going to break you. But when you are able to work through the process and go through the steps, that is coming in book 2. When you come out on the other side, believe it or not, you are better for you and for the people around you than before you started, because now you're walking into an environment or in any situation, you are present. Not because of labels, but you are present because you know who you are as a woman.
Okay. Was there a moment when you realized that some of the beliefs you held about yourself were inherited from your social reality rather than that they were actually true?
Oh God, yes. There were so many, and I can give you I can tell you exactly when that started to happen. When I left Jamaica in 2015, not that I was not aware of leadership and self-development and self-help and all of that. I was, because I was into all of that. But I met a pastor at the time. He was my boss's father, and he gave me a book called Intentional Living, written by John C. Maxwell. And he was detailing to me his life story as a banker, as a father, as a husband, as a pastor, because he too had multiple labels. And he said, I'm giving you this book, not just for you to read, I want you to study the book. And he said, you need to read it 3 times. And these were his instructions. He said, your first read is for familiarization. Your second read is for understanding. Your third read is application. And I remember sitting in the airport lounge because I was going to the US and he was going, I think, to Canada. So we were in the airport lounge, and for some reason, God will have caused us to run into each other. And I said to him, why do I need to read the book 3 times? I said I could read it once and do all of that. He said, no. He said that is rushing the process. And I said, okay. He said, when you finish reading, I want you to, for the first read, I want you to write down what is your general understanding of that book without picking out any specific portion of that. And believe me, I sat down and I did. I read it a second time and realized that when I went back to what I wrote the first time, the second time my understanding was completely different. So I went ahead and read it the third time, and then I began to try to implement. And I journaled that journey. When I began to realize that all of the things that I thought were true to me was in the third read, and that was in 2015. And that was where my transformation started. That was where I began to journal with more intent. That is when I have conversation. My conversation was not just for talking sake, but there had to be a purpose, there had to be a reason, there had to be an end result for it. Because everything that I'm doing in my life is a part of my leadership story. It's a part of how I will raise my children. It's a part of how I will impart to a team or to an audience. It's a part of how I will respond to your questions today, because I was able to go through that process. So it does take time. Society labels us a lot of times, and they label us because of what they know. And that because they know it, that does not mean it's true. Because those are just their opinions. They are not facts. Because they have not lived your life. They can only empathize with you, but they will never be able to detail your story.
Empathize or criticize.
Or criticize.
Right. So, all right. Thanks for that. Can you name for those listening some of the labels women accept without realizing they're limiting their identity?
Wow. Some of the labels that we accept, and some of them are negative and some of them are positive.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the negative labels that we accept, there are single mother. And we say that we label that person a single mother as if it is something to be ashamed of. We label that person a single mother as if she committed the worst sin in the world, so she needs to be put aside. She does not need to be a part of this group here, because this is the elite group. This is a pristine group. She doesn't need to be here. Some of the other labels that we accept are, oh, she's just floating around. And I spoke about that in the book, The Floater. And you are just going from one place to the other, trying to fit in. You're trying to be a part of a place that you are not even meant to be. We are trying to follow ideologies that weren't even meant for us. So we just float around from day to day because we are so unsure in our minds that you are meant for more. You were meant to walk in your purpose. You're meant to walk in a room. And when you walk in that room, everybody needs to stop and say, oh my God, her presence, without saying a word. But because we accept these labels from society, we are unable to be able to say, all right, this is not who I am as a person. I am going to show you that I can do more. Right. And I'm going to come back to your question, but one of the things that we also look at too, and I'm talking about leadership a little bit now, not so personal, we have this thing we call the DISC assessment, right? And the DISC is DISC. And the D in DISC, it says you're a dominant person. And it gives you some descriptions as to what this dominant personality is. And I did that because I'm also a DISC trainer. I also did that assessment and I came out as a DI. So I'm a dominant person. And when you look at those labels, if you accept what they are, believe it or not, you will go out there in the world of work or in your personal life and begin to live those labels because you're believing them. But the intent of that is to use the information to see how you can make yourself better. It's not to accept it. It's similar to what these zodiac signs. I'm a Gemini, and oh my God. Yeah, she's a Gemini. That's why she behaves like that. She's dominant. She is, she talks over you. She thinks she knows it all. Because I'm labeled like that too. I'm a know-it-all. I'm not a know-it-all. I just don't accept everything that you say because I have an opinion. I have a brain that works. Yeah. We accept labels as if we're not enough. You don't fit in here. This space is not for you. We accept labels based on the name that we carry or surname because your name is not one of those names that are known. For example, you in Jamaica, and the chins and all of those, if you have those surnames, you are labeled as being the it of society, or you are seen as being rich and wealthy and the rest of it. But you may be poor in so many other things, in personality and character. So we accept some of these labels because it makes society think or feel, or you feel as if you will fit in. It puts you at a place where this is where you need to perform because this is how you are seen, and society has given me this label already. So I will just accept it as what it is. Yep. And us accepting those labels, they limit our beliefs of ourselves. It forces us into a corner. It forces us to not being able to grow, not being able to move, because we do not know how to get away from what society puts out there as to how you need to act and behave as a woman if you are a part of this little group here that they have put you in.
Mm-hmm. You know, you're saying all of this, and I'm even looking in, doing some introspection, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Gemini. And yes, people do think, even my family think, you know, she's a little know-it-all. And
Yes.
I do try to, you know, tame that instinct to say things even if I know
Right?
if they're doing something wrong, just to
Yeah.
simply let there be peace, Lord, in the
Mm-hmm.
whole. So I've done that. I've done that even in the workplace. So
Right.
I've also had to deal with being a single mother. I was a Christian up until I said, you know something, I would like to
Mm-hmm.
have a child. And I'm getting on up in age. So, hey, I need to have a child now. Coming up, part 2, The Awakening.
Healthy self-talk is one of the greatest things. And sometimes my youngest son, he could sometimes come and say, Mommy, love yourself again. And I say, yes, I am. Because it's something that I do. And he will see the expression on my face because it's like an entire board meeting is going on here with multiple